Okay, we're tying everything together in this video. We've worked on dividing a whole number by a decimal, dividing a decimal by a whole number, and this time we're putting it all together and we're going to divide a decimal by a decimal. And so the two examples I'm going to give are from the homework assignment that I gave out. I'll start with, what if you had 34 hundredths and you wanted to divide that by 2/10? Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we need to set this up in a way that we can work with. So 34 hundredths is our dividend and 2/10 is our divisor. Now this is going to look very similar to the steps that we have already learned how to do. In fact, there really are no new steps for dividing a decimal by a decimal. Once you've learned how to divide a decimal by a whole number and divide a whole number by a decimal, you've learned all the steps that you need. Now we're just combining them to solve this problem. Next thing I want to do is get the decimal out of the divisor. So I'm going to move it one place to the right. And now instead of it being 2/10, it's the number 2. So really I multiply 2/10 times 10. And if I do that to the divisor, I also have to do it to the dividend. So I'm moving one place to the right. Now my decimal moves in between the 3 and the 4. And then I want to bring that up. So I'm combining those two steps. So I've moved my decimal and I've brought it up. I multiplied the dividend and the divisor both by 10. 2/10 became 2 and 34 hundredths became 3 and 4/10. Now I can just go through and do the division problem. 2 goes into 3 one time. That gives me 2. And I do that subtraction problem, I'm left with 1, and I bring down my 4, and 2 will go into 14 7 times. So my answer is 1 7/10. Okay. Let's look at one more. Let's say that I had 2 7/10, and I wanted to divide that up by 9 hundredths. Okay. First step is I'm going to set it up in a way that I can work with. 2 7/10 is the dividend, and I'm dividing it by the divisor 9 hundredths. Okay. This time I'm actually going to have to move my decimal 2 times to get it out of the way in the dividend. So I'm going to go 1, 2 to get it behind the 9. And that means I'm going to have to move it 2 places in my dividend. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and that puts it an extra space behind the 7. So I've got to fill that empty space with a 0, and then I'll bring my decimal up. Okay. So this turns out now my divisor is actually 9, not 9 hundredths. So it's going to be 270 divided by 9. Now I can go through and do the division. 9 can't go into 2, and I'm putting the 0 there because it's really important now that the digits are lined up the way they're supposed to be around the decimal. I don't want to make a mistake and end up with making a mistake on that, because then my answer is going to be off. 9 can't go into 2, but it can go into 27 3 times, and that is 27, and there's nothing left. But I still have a 0 to bring down, which means I'm not finished. My answer is not 3. I've got one more step to go. 9 goes into 0 0 times. So my actual last step was to put a 0 there. So it goes into it 30 times. Not 3, but 30. Okay? So there's two examples of dividing a decimal by a decimal.